Hey everybody, and welcome to a new video. And in this video, I want to tell you guys about 5 things that I learned working for Apple. So for those of you who don't know, I actually worked at Apple for just about 6 years, and not consecutively. I did about 4-ish years, left, and then came back to the retail store. But I want to tell you about some of the most important things that I learned from working there, because I do feel like there's a lot of skill sets that I picked up in that time, and a lot of lessons I learned about working in the workforce, especially as a young person who was in their teens and then, the late teens and then into my young 20s. And I feel like some of these lessons are going to be really important. One of the first things that I learned was effective communication. And when I use effective communication, I want to define that a little bit. So my initial role when I worked at the company was phone support. And I was a part of the college program. They did it with select campuses. I went to the University of Florida. And so that was just one of the campuses that they offered. I started out as like what they call a tier 1 phone support person, who just did iOS devices, talking people through their iPhone problems. And in that time, I had to learn how to communicate with somebody where I can't see their device and they might not have the technological know-how to know where I'm pointing them if I'm not clear and concise with my communication about exactly what I want them to do. In that communication, not only do you have to tell somebody exactly what you want them to do, and you gotta point them in the right direction for something that they might not be familiar with, they might not be confident in, you also have to adapt to the communication style of the person. So each person, and I'm sure if you've met anybody, especially somebody who's technologically challenged, you'll understand that different people learn in different ways. This is really obvious, but I'm going to show you kind of how that can play out. So with some people, when they're having an issue, some people get really emotional, some people get really flustered, and there's a certain way that you're going to have to approach that conversation that you don't have to approach in that way with somebody who's calm, cool, collected, and just wants you to tell them what to do. And so one of the things that they kind of instilled in us was identifying these personality types and adjusting your communication style for those different personalities. And I'm going to see if I can remember what they were, because it's been a while since I did it. But one was a director. This is somebody who you tell exactly where to go, what to do. They just want to know each step and they're going to follow it. And no questions asked, like they'll just follow your instructions. Then you have the entertainer. This is somebody who I would consider myself an entertainer when I'm the customer. Is somebody who wants to relate to the person, who wants to talk with them, crack jokes, whatever. And these people are fun to talk to, but hard to keep on task. The thinker. So the thinker is somebody who wants to know why. It's like, hey, but why are we doing this? Or like, but why is this happening? Somebody that needs an explanation. They feel better getting the knowledge of like why it's happening, what's going on. They want to have some semblance of an understanding of the issue beyond just you solving it for them. I can't remember what the final term was for it, but these people are emotional. These are people that you need to empathize with. These are people that want you to hear their pain and they want you to feel their pain. And these people, you need to make sure that you solve them first before you solve their problem. And just learning those different communication styles, how I needed to adjust my communication style based on the level of knowledge that these people may or may not have in regards to their technical ability or whatever their issue is or whatever their device is, being able to adjust that for them, knowing the audience and speaking to that audience. And that is a skill that I use every day. So then they had this thing called the 3 A's. And this was acknowledge, align, and assure. And so basically what that means is you want to acknowledge their problem, acknowledge their pain point. You want to align with them and you want to empathize with them, and they got to know that you're on their side. And then you want to assure them that you are going to get them the solution that they need. I definitely still unconsciously do to people where I feel like I especially if I'm in troubleshooting mode, I'm gonna align with them. I'm gonna acknowledge their problem. I'm gonna assure them that I'm gonna solve it for them, and it's something that is extremely valuable, and it is an effective strategy. And when you combine that with tailoring it to the different personality types, it's huge, and it really does make a big difference. That actually kind of leads into my second point, which is empathy and building rapport. So as part of align, assuring, and acknowledging, you're demonstrating a level of empathy. You're putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. How would you feel if you were the one who was potentially losing thousands of photos of their grandchildren? I had to handle some calls like that. Being able to really empathize with people and really put yourself in their shoes is so important, because it helps you come to an understanding of what their perspective is and why they might be reacting in the way that they might be, right? So somebody, especially if somebody's upset and they're nervous about losing valuable information or memories and pictures, and why they might be taking it out on you, but it's actually not personal to you, and more often than not it's not. And on the phones it especially isn't, because they barely see you as a human being when you're on the phones. The third thing that I want to talk about is adaptability, and this is an ability to change and adapt with the environment on the fly and as quickly as possible. This is something that is necessary. If you've ever worked at any tech company, Apple specifically is very fast moving and changes a bunch of things on a dime, but any tech company, any agile company of any kind, you're going to go through changes. They're going to happen rapidly. And if you don't adapt to it, you're not going to be around for very long. I started out as iOS, but it wasn't long before they started training me. First it was just iPhones, then they trained me on iPods, same software, but minor differences. Then iPads, again, same software, but minor differences. Then eventually Apple TV, then eventually Mac OS, and that was a whole other thing, was skilling me for Mac OS. Came with, a little bit of a raise and whatnot. And then eventually I even became a senior advisor. And a senior advisor basically handles the worst case scenario. So, you would take a call from a tier 1 advisor, and the tier 1 advisor might be like, hey, I just deleted this customer's entire life. Can you take over the call? And by policy, you have to take over the call, which is fine. Makes sense. They need help. Clearly, they were not doing a great job. And you take over and you try to fix their mess. And with that developed a lot of skills for me. Of just having to adapt to the most impossible situations. And I would have people start out talking to me where they're already up here, man. They're already on level 100, and I would have to talk them off the ledge and bring them back down. And by the end of the call, especially if I was actually able to solve their issue, they would be so grateful and would be like thanking me later. Being able to adapt and problem solve on the fly and learn things quickly, that was so valuable, and something that you're just going to have to deal with. And especially now, with ChatGPT potentially deleting your job from existence, I think you need to figure out how to adapt. About ChatGPT, you need to learn how to use that, and quickly, because it's an amazing tool that can speed up what you do. But if you're not already on that, you're already behind, because there's a lot of people who are already going to start using that to optimize whatever they're doing, including their resumes and their LinkedIn's and all that. And I highly recommend using that tool. So if you haven't heard about ChatGPT, that's going to have to be a different video, but you need to get on it. So lesson number 4 for me is all about mentorship and leadership. So this was something that I actually learned once I became, actually just before I became a senior advisor. I was already handling mentorship and leadership. I was running our stand-ups at times, and I also was providing assistance to team members who were not doing as well. One thing that I always did really well at that job is I had really good customer satisfaction. I would get a lot of really good surveys, and I usually did a good enough job to elicit a survey. And part of that was that I would have good conversations with people, because, hey, if you're going to be on the phone, you might as well kill the time and talk about something interesting. But in addition to that, I always made sure to get them a good solution, and I always made sure to reassure them that we got them the solution, right? I would close out the call and remind them of what we accomplished. Let's just call them like low performers on our team, where they're good people, but they just were struggling with something, whether it was the handle time of the calls or they weren't getting enough positive surveys, etc. And so what I would do is I actually listened in on some calls, as you know, per request of my manager, who was the one who actually got me the promotion to become a senior advisor afterwards. I would provide them feedback on them, would just kind of coach them on different things. And at times I even would listen in on a call in real time and would then message them and say like, hey, you know, this is what you should be doing, blah, blah, blah. That was such an important skill that I wish I had done more of that in my subsequent jobs, because in my other jobs, I haven't been given the opportunity to do that. But that was something I really enjoyed because I like to bring the best out of people. I want to see people succeed. I want to see people be their best versions of themselves. Like, I've always enjoyed that. As part of what this channel is, I think, is that I want people to find out what they're capable of and to really go after that. That was one of the most powerful things that I learned from that job, and probably the most fulfilling thing that I got from it, because a lot of times, you know, you're solving an issue and then you're hanging up the phone and you're right back into another issue. You don't even have time to like enjoy your wins because 30 seconds later that phone's ringing and you got to answer another call. So just being a leader and mentoring people, bringing them up a level with you, where you can, where if you have some expertise, you have something that you know, and you're able to share it with somebody, not only does it deepen your understanding of whatever that thing is, but it also really just, it brings up your connection with your team. It brings up your connection with your fellow coworkers, or if you apply this outside of your professional career, just with anybody that you're able to help. I mean, you get the satisfaction of seeing them succeed and seeing them doing better, but then also you're connecting with that person on a deeper level. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is just skill acquisition. Something that I learned, as I've already kind of mentioned in this video, is that throughout my time at Apple, I was progressively being taught new things and being skilled for new things so that I could handle more variety in my types of calls, right? So they had a very purposeful way of skilling me, where they skilled me and then enabled me in various phone queues that would get funneled to me. So pretty much every type of call then eventually started getting funneled to me because I was skilled for pretty much every call that would come in. That same principle should apply to you in every job that you work at. You should be looking at what are skills that you can take from this job that you will learn in the role that is relevant to your role, but that you can take outside of this job. Because the days of working at a job for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, they're over, man. If you're not job hopping every few years or so, shortchanging the amount of money you can make. I know that making money isn't everything, but there is some degree that you want to be going up as much as you can throughout the years. In each job, you need to be finding specific skill sets that you can learn and you can use, and eventually get yourself in a position where you are so valuable because you've learned so many different things from so many different perspectives, so many different roles that you've been in, that you will bring such a unique skill set that makes you invaluable. So it's really important to like take the time to learn the skills, get good at some things before you leave that job. And then if you go into the next job and you're doing something different, that's okay, as long as you're still maintaining that you have the previous skills from before. And then that way, when you're combining all of those skills together, it's like you got it. Like you're now Superman because you can handle this type of thing and this type of thing and this type of thing. And all of those things put together then creates this unique skill set that only you possess. And that creates value for you, which makes you more or less irreplaceable in some circumstances. Overall, I was able to learn effective communication. I was able to learn empathy in a professional environment. I was able to learn adaptability and being able to continuously improve. I was able to learn leadership and mentorship, and I was able to learn skill set acquisition. And all of those things combined were extremely valuable skills and extremely valuable lessons that I have taken with me to every other job since. And I think that you can benefit from even just a few of these in your professional career. So let me know in the comments below and tell me what are some things that you learned in your first job, in your first big job or big boy or girl job. And just kind of tell me like what things that you thought were valuable, because I'd love to learn from your experiences and see if we can all shortcut each other a little further ahead in our own careers. So if you like this video, be sure to hit a like, hit a subscribe as well, and watch my previous video, which is right here. All right. Thanks for watching. Peace.